Hello and welcome to Moneylife News and Views. I am Debashis Basu. Last week, the Finance Minister, Ms Nirmala Sitharaman, told the Rajya Sabha that scheduled commercial banks have written off 10 lakh crore of bad loans in 5 years and that only 13% of the write-offs have been recovered. Separately, cumulative recovery of bad loans since the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code was set up in 2016 has been just 30.8%. To those who have read my previous many articles over the past 7 years, this would not have come as a surprise. There are two issues here: bad loans in banks, and then when they go for resolution, the IBC recovery process. Now, they seem independent, but they are very closely connected because first, that is the bad loans, determine the outcome of the second, that is the resolution through IBC. Let me lay out the picture once again. The bulk of bad loans originate in public sector banks. Many loans are designed to go bad from the beginning. Yes, I'm making that allegation. From the sanction stage, there is corruption. Once the case is referred to IBC, there is no asset or very little asset left to recover. That is the true picture of what's actually happening. I have explained this repeatedly since 2014 in the context of the reforms of public sector banks and what IBC can deliver. The data has now proved this view. The first, that is the corruption and bad loans. What is surprising to me is that all those who are engaged in handling, commenting, and on resolving the monumental bad loan crisis never saw or acknowledged that the single biggest reason for bad loans is right in front of our eyes, which is corruption in sanctioning bad loans, the nexus between businessmen and bankers. And therefore, nothing has ever been done to make bank officers accountable. On the contrary, officials of the Reserve Bank of India, Ministry of Finance, and bank chairmen have all blamed external issues, which is genuine business failure and poor bankruptcy laws. But all this time, it is bankers themselves who are responsible for ensuring that public money from public sector banks have enriched the so-called bankrupt promoters. Dr. Raghuram Rajan, former RBI governor, while speaking in mid-2016 about the public sector banks, blamed bad loans on groupthink and herd instinct of bankers who were apparently chasing businessmen during the 2006 to 2008 boom with their checkbooks. With one anecdote, Rajan extrapolated a number of these loans across trillions of rupees of bad assets of PSBs and absolved completely the government and bankers for the real reason for bad loans, which is a collusion between bankers and businessmen. Public sector bank employees are government employees who have no incentive to lend. So behaviorally, in fact, they are the best place to turn down dubious proposals. They have nothing, they have no stakes. What incentives drove these officers to chase promoters waving checkbooks, as Rajan so colorfully described? The answer is obvious. They had their own personal incentives. When PSBs were not lending during the slowdown post-2010, Rajan then went on to publicly defend them, saying that bankers are scared of vigilance inquiry and hence are unable to take decisions. As I pointed out then, he ignored the fact that very few bank officials have paid a price when banks are found to be horribly short of collateral, a cardinal sin in banking, and that happens routinely in PSBs. This is especially so since public sector banks always lend against assets and not against cash flows. What about the second aspect, which is the IBC recovery process? Most people have forgotten today, but a few years ago, the convenient excuse of bankers for poor recovery was bankruptcy laws. The former chairperson of State Bank of India, Arundhati Bhattacharya, once said, "We need a shake-up in the regulatory system and tougher rules for defaulters, as well as proper bankruptcy law to get help in orderly resolution of bad assets." Well, the fact is that over 3 decades, policymakers have initiated half a dozen measures to deal with bad loans, each one tougher than the previous one, and also any bankruptcy law comes into play after the loan has gone bad, not before. If loans are willfully designed to go bad by rogue bankers who have personal incentives, what will bankruptcy laws do? Indeed, the IBC has only proven how wide and deep are the corrupt banking practices in PSBs. Anyone with some idea about lending knows that if you want a genuine loan, bankers would impose onerous conditions, including arm twisting you to buy unnecessary insurance. You cannot get a loan without personal guarantees and also in some cases third-party guarantors. There is absolutely no reason why banks should be short of enforceable collateral at all, and yet across the board in Alok Industries, Bhushan Steel, Bhushan Power, Monet Ispat, Videocon, SR Group, Shiva Industries and numerous other cases, banks had to write off almost everything. No banker has ever been asked what happened to the collateral. Clearly the bad loans were not a result of poor commercial judgment or decisions, as Rajan and others had argued in defense of the banks. They were designed to fail and loot the PSBs, and that is why banks have recovered only 13% of the loans that they've written off and only 30% at the IBC level. Will any of this change under this government? Of course, I can say there is hardly any indiscriminate or political lending, barring one exception. Hence, PSBs will probably report much lower bad loans now for a few years. But unless they are privatized, there will always be the danger of a new round of bad loans, especially under a different political regime. On the other hand, as suspected, the IBC process has quickly turned into a morass of shady deals, practices, endless amendments, circulars, ad hoc changes, and retrograde judgments from courts. The bankruptcy process needs to be driven or supported at least by a market clearing system, as I've argued many times. But that needs a very strong and a radical political or a philosophical shift in thinking, which is asking too much just now. If you've liked this, please share and please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.